All right, welcome. Let's get started with our webinar. My name is Mike Ritsema, President Principal here at i3 Business Solutions. I'm here with Brian Abraham because Dave Carey had an accident today driving into work. So we've got our CTO, Brian Abraham, here to join us. And today we're going to cover the 5 security priorities every IT manager must address. By the way, if you're a business owner, CEO, president, CFO, ask your IT manager about these items and or your MSP firm or the IT organization that you're working with. Agenda is pretty straightforward, and that is Brian is going to cover the threat is real. We're going to talk about the 5 priorities, and then we're going to get into next steps. So let's get started.
Yeah, Mike, the threat is real, absolutely. Cybercrime is growing. So everybody hears the stats, you see the news stories. It's really the big guys that make the news though, right? So, I mean, there's some staggering figures, 6 trillion annually in damage, 103 billion in cybersecurity spending. Now, an interesting stat is 92.4% of malware delivered via email. So this is not something that you have exposed to the outside. It's not what people think of as a web server or something insecure that wasn't necessarily patched on the outside world potentially. This is a user clicked a link that let the bad guys in, or they gave away the credentials to your business to the other company, to the cyber criminals. Targeting small businesses. So you hear about the big businesses in news that are attacked, but you don't hear about the small businesses. And I mean, Mike, we've heard small businesses in West Michigan that have had a significant cyber attack. Some of them have gone out of business as a result. They've been either so severely devastated and their operations impacted that they lost their core clientele, had to shut down, or the cost of recovery was so severe they couldn't withstand it.
Right.
So very good.
All right, coming back off mute here. Sorry about that. Yeah, we're just saying that it was a couple of doctors south of Grand Rapids who their server was got the crypto virus and they couldn't restore it, and they said we're just going to close the practice down. That was in the news recently. We've got customers or people in our universe who have had incidents, and we've been called in to help. Yeah, we can name a number of very specific examples where breaches have occurred.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of businesses, your entire business operates around the data, right? Without your data, you don't have a business.
Right.
So when that is catastrophically destroyed, and you're faced with a proposition of rebuilding the business from zero,
Yep.
That's a pretty debilitating loss.
Moving right along, let's talk about priority number 1. And priority number 1 is multi-factor authentication. And I say, if your IT manager or your firm, including i3 Business Solutions, hasn't implemented multi-factor authentication, especially for Office 365, then you need to do that now or next week. 99.99% of spear phishing attacks can be prevented by multi-factor authentication. That's substantial because when they gain access to your system, when they can log in remotely, they will sit for a week, a month, or months, and then seize on the right email address, vendor, bank, customer to try and make their attack. And so multi-factor is so important for G Suite, for Office 365, for your email system. But then secondly, for payroll, for 401k, for banking, you know, we know that many of these sites, banks and so on, are requiring multi-factor authentication. If they're not, you want to start sequencing through it, including your ERP system. So the more multi-factor you can put in place at your company, the stronger your protection is. And then thirdly, which leads to the third point here, password management, personal email accounts, and certainly bank accounts, 401k accounts, etc., multi-factor authentication. We recommend for password management LastPass. We use it at i3 Business Solutions throughout the company. We rail against using a browser, saving passwords into a browser. My goodness, if your Gmail account is breached and they gain access to Chrome or your browser, you're in trouble right now. So no spreadsheets on the server or on the desktop. Nope, not good for password management, no browsers. Certainly long, complex, different, and changed at least once a year. I can't believe it. We're a member of a number of peer groups, franchise-like organizations where we share best practices. I was on a call just last week where Shane said that his own daughter was breached for her Gmail account. And when she realized it, she couldn't get to reset her password for about 2 hours. By the time she reset her password and started working through her accounts, can you believe her PayPal account had the same password as her Gmail account? When she went to PayPal, it was empty. So this is what's going on out there. This is real. We're talking about a peer, a technology company owner whose daughter was breached in that way. We certainly cannot allow the same password to be used for business applications as personal applications, but I can assure you right now, you do have employees that are doing that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we added a new service this year for our reliability clients, Mike, the dark web monitoring. So that is a service. If you're not familiar, if somebody has reacted to a phishing email, they've given their password to the bad guys. It's ended up for sale on the dark web. You know, we get those alerts. We can see that. It's interesting. We were just talking with a prospective client recently, and we run this report as part of our process, and you know, said, hey, here's a password we found that you guys has leaked out on the dark web, and the person we're talking to is like, oh my gosh, we use that password for everything, for all of our stuff. So unique passwords, password manager, yeah, very important.
That prospective customer, the owner's a little bit older. He wanted to use the same password for everything. The client sitting right here in this room told us what the password was, and you showed him the report and said, there it is.
Yeah, scary.
Yeah. Major concern.
That's what we call imminent breach. It's only a matter of time.
All right. Brian, what do you got on education and awareness?
So a huge amount of the threats that are coming in are from phishing emails, and they're getting more and more sophisticated, right? If you're an Office 365 user, they're disguised to look like an Office 365 email where you need to log in. You need to, you know, access a document. People are accustomed to logging in online when they retrieve documents now. So now we have to train them to be aware of what's a legitimate login and what's a malicious login. Because the malicious ones, they're giving away the keys to your company when they click on those phishing links. So training and awareness education is critical. It's a huge part of reducing the risk to the organization.
Yeah.
Helping those employees understand what they're doing when they're entering in those credentials, and multi-factor authentication.
So this is very important. This is number one and number two, multi-factor and training and awareness. And this graphic is from KnowBe4, and the number one clicked on link in Q3 2019, LinkedIn, you appeared in a new search. And secondly, password reset and deactivation requests. The 10 most clicked general email subjects are password check required immediately. Secondly, a delivery attempt was made. I actually got caught by this one. Looked like an Office 365 email. Hey, somebody tried to send you something. Looked real. I sent it to our team and said, is this real? What's going on here? Because I was actually accessing documents. A delivery attempt was made. And when you're collaborating with people and trying to get work done, it's like, let's get on this. Deactivation of email in process. Holy cow, we're going to deactivate your email unless you click here and reset your website. The other one that came through for me is most common wild attack, Skype new unread voicemail. This showed up in my inbox. I don't know why or where, but I had a Skype account and I have used Skype voicemail. So these are the what's showing up out there real time in Q3. A couple of things here. i3 Business Solutions does offer spear phishing cybersecurity education. It runs from $99 to $4.99 a month. Secondly, watch for emails from us, short 1 to 6 minute educational videos that we'll send that you can share with your team. And then if you'd like an executive presentation to your executive team, we have a short 25-minute presentation on cybersecurity awareness for your executive team.
All right, user security permissions. So this is something that goes overlooked a lot of the time, but what happens and happens very often in small business is you have, people that are maybe managing IT, or your IT manager or your IT staff that log in with their everyday account, their John Smith account. It has administrative permissions on the whole network. A lot of times the business owners have administrative permissions to everything on the network. They kind of want to have visibility and control of everything. Well, that puts them at a unique risk for being able to introduce a threat to the environment. If they click on, an email, if they give away their credentials, now it's literally the keys to the kingdom. Or if they get a malicious piece of malware on their device, now that device has administrative credentials. It can sweep through the network and really either cause severe damage or allow an attacker to gain a foothold. So key thing there is having a separate accounts for administrative controls. If you need to access, make administrative changes, you have an admin account. So here at i3, we have unique accounts for everybody that has administrative control, unique accounts for each individual, and that's not their daily, everyday login account. It's a special account that you only log into and use when you need those controls. So minimizes the risk in the environment. Easy, free thing to do. Office 365, same thing. So there's what's called a global admin or a tenant admin. You can create another separate dedicated user account, separate from your daily user account, no additional cost for that.
Yeah, and this is part of our best practices. We're marching through our clients and narrowing this down, but also I know when we talk to prospective clients, you run that report on admins, and it's amazing how often there's 5 to 10 to 15 admin accounts, right?
Yeah, well, a lot of times, customers or small businesses will give somebody administrative permissions to do a task. Maybe you had a consultant come in to do a job, you set up an account for them, let them do their thing, and then nobody thinks to go back through and clean that up. Yeah. So that leaves a huge security vulnerability exposing your network.
Yep. All right, now we're on to the basics. Number 4 is patching and protecting. We take this for granted, but certainly in the layers of security, patching and protecting is high on the list. Again, we take it for granted. It is the basics, and it's everything from antivirus to updating Windows desktops, Windows servers, and applications. I would submit that in the layers of security, we'll get to this at the end, endpoint detection and response is a consideration. There are improved means to manage desktop antivirus or EDR to protect the endpoint. And this can include a SOC watching any changes that happen to a server or an endpoint to protect it. And that's just a matter of risk management. Anything to add to the patching side, Brian?
I'd just say, patching was always traditionally making sure Windows is up to date, right? Windows patches. So patches go a lot farther beyond that. I mean, now, the world is filled with these Internet of Things devices, right? Everybody's got a Chromecast, Alexa on the network, right? People are attaching those to their corporate networks without thinking about the security implications of those. So a lot of those devices are potentially insecure, or they need patches. A lot of your network equipment, so firewalls, switches, UPSs, all of those things have potential vulnerabilities that put the company at risk that should be monitored and patched.
Beautiful. And number 5, Brian?
Yeah, backup. So when all else fails, that's what the backup's for, especially with ransomware events. So when an attacker gets a foothold in an environment, they're usually looking for what is in here of value. What can I sell? How can I make money off of this? And usually the last thing they do is apply ransomware to it, which is basically, that's the last amount of money I'm going to get out of it. So if you're a medical environment, they're going to look to extort you. They're going to look to sell your medical records, blackmail, and you've seen this with hospitals. You saw it with there was a huge, what was it, counties or cities in Texas? It was like half a dozen different townships that all had ransomware that wiped out their systems. So backups are critically important. How you configure those backups, not just having them, but is there what's called an air gap that separates the backups from the network? So at i3, we use incremental, continuous, full image backups, keep them on site, then we send them off site. We create that air gap between the customer's network and where the off-site backups are kept. So there's a lot of big businesses that don't send that data off-site because it's very expensive, and they're at a huge risk for that data being encrypted from a ransomware event.
Yes, in the layers of protection, backup is on the list. If the bad actors get through all 4 or 5 layers of security, the backups are there. So coming toward the end of our presentation here, certainly i3 has been on this journey 15 years ago, merged a couple of companies, created i3 Business Solutions focused on accelerating business results. 10, 11 years ago, we rolled out our checklist, process excellence in reliability, R3 services. And then our Fortress Security Services we rolled out this year, and adding to that protection, including things like EDR. And we say there's fundamentals, we talked about them, the patching, the antivirus, cloud DNS, but then our foundation includes firewall and our image-based backup solution. Those are givens. And then we move up the ladder to tighter and tighter security controls. And so if you'd like more information on any of this, track us down, but certainly, again, endpoint detection and response, SOC-based, eyes on glass for your desktops and servers is a higher level of security. So actions, next steps. I mean, my goodness, implement multi-factor authentication. And again, if it's us, track us down, make sure we get on task for that at your organization. And if it's you, the IT manager, check that one off the list. Secondly, organize around educating the team and watch for educational videos from i3 Business Solutions. Request a spear phishing quote from i3. We're getting on task on this. We'll be delivering them to all of our clients. It's imperative that we inform everybody in the organization to be cautious and remind them over and over again. And then lastly, an assessment. If you have compliance demands or you're concerned, are my layers of security up to snuff? is my business at risk? Then we can do an assessment and say, what are some of the ways that we can improve security? Thanks for taking the time here today. You can track us down, Mike Ritsema, at that phone number or email address, Brian Abraham, that phone number or email address. Questions, give us a call. I think that Grace will be sending a link to this recording, and if you're looking for the slide deck, email any one of us. Technology marches on. Mitigate your business risk.